so I could have some quiet time with the Lord. Because that's what I would do. I get there 7, and I eat breakfast and relax and get my mind together and pray, you know. And the regional vice president was already in the office when I got there at 7. Now, you know that doesn't happen. All right? And so I got there and I got in, and she came up to me and she said, I need to speak with you in my office. I went, uh-oh. But I didn't expect what was to come. I got in the office. She sat down. She said, how was your day? I said, I'm doing fine. Okay, great. She said, let's get down to it. Here's a letter. We are terminating you. We're going to lay you off, and we're going to give you a month's benefit. I need your pass, your security pass, and your door pass, and your computer, even as you're sitting here right now, is being cut off. Do you want to go down to stay in human resources, or do you want to pack your desk and go home? You know, what do I do now? That's my identity. If my identity had been built on that job, I was sunk because it was over. And then the next time I got laid off was a nonprofit company came in that Thursday and told us that the company is closing on Monday morning. Right. And the next time I got laid off, it was because I was working for a grant-funded organization, and they said, we did not get our grant renewed, so we're going to have to lay you off. Right? So if my identity was built on those things, I would be devastated. Right? And unfortunately, many times people build their marriage on an inadequate basis, right? It's based on their looks or how much money they were making at the time when they first got married or what job position they had, those kind of things, right? The third reason for the dissolution of marriages is because the partners were never prepared for marriage. And their expectations about marriage were very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. Either their expectations were too high or their expectations were too low. See? Either way, they were unrealistic. Right? So that's the 3 reasons for marriage failure. So let's talk a little bit then about these seasons of marriage, because it's very important. Since one of the reasons why marriages fail, right, even Christian marriages, is because people are unprepared for the seasons of marriage, no one told you that your marriage is going to go through seasons, so you didn't prepare for it. I have to admit, very few people are informed that your marriage will go through seasons. And each season is different, and each season is going to require something different of you. Right? But we don't prepare people well. And I wasn't prepared for this in my first marriage. So here's the first season of marriage. Let's talk about this one. This is the fun one. The first passage of marriage is the dream. Here comes the bride, here comes the bride. Dun, 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 dun. And everybody go, oh my God, this dress is so beautiful. Oh man, you lost so much weight, bro. You're looking good. You know, you fit the tux, you look good, man. You're clean cut, you're glowing, you're healthy. That's the first passage of marriage. That's the dream. That's the summer, you know. Actually, sorry, that's spring. That was a mistake. It's spring. It's an anticipation of what is to come. The excitement of, oh man, you're giddy. This is great. And you're supposed to be, by the way. You're supposed to be giddy at your wedding. You're supposed to be. It can't be, oh, I'm getting married. If that's how it is for you, you're already in trouble, okay? You're supposed to be excited. You're supposed to be thrilled and looking into the eyes of this person with young love. It motivates you to work hard. This is the season where you don't argue with each other and you say, oh, I love you. I love you too. And you Google eyes with each other, and you go to the restroom together, and you have showers together, and you walk down the street together, and you do all kinds of stuff together. I know you're laughing now, but you guys did it. You did the same thing, all right? All right. That's 0 to 2 years. That's where you're really giddy, and that's okay. That's how we designed it. But unfortunately, no one told us that season only lasts for a couple of years. That season only lasts for a couple of years. For some people, actually, it's even shorter. I know a couple of people who, over the years that I've ministered to and met, and they said it was over the night of the honeymoon, the first night of the honeymoon, because the wedding event itself was so stressful that they were at each other's throats. And by the time they got to the honeymoon in the Caribbean, it was already over. They realized, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? And so it was already over. So they didn't even get to experience the dream, the spring, the young love, the season. Because spring is the time where it's beginning to get warmer. There's an anticipation and an excitement of what's to come. And that's the season of the first 2 years of your marriage. See? It's the season, the passage of the dream. But then now you get to the next season, which is around 3 to 10 years. That's when you run into the season of the second parish of the marriage, which is disillusionment and the fall. I mean, it's cold, right? Things, you just begin to, your expectations, your unrealistic expectations of what this was going to be like begin to be dashed. See? You realize that this person has the ability, that person that you thought you loved so much and that you knew so well, you begin to see some stuff begin to come out. They leave the toilet seat up. They leave the toothpaste uncovered, and they forget to close the bread, and tie it up, and the bread is hard, they don't wash their clothes often, right? Not me, or Myrna, we don't have that problem, but you have all kinds of stuff begin to come up. You see, and all of a sudden you begin to go, oh man. And a chill comes in the air, and the fall comes. You suddenly realize that you have an inadequate basis of communication. You really don't know how to communicate. And all the things that in the first 2 years that you never argued about, you never addressed because you were trying to maintain utopia. But now in years 3 to 10, disillusionment begins to set in. Because you actually argue. You actually have disagreements. You actually may even have a child or two. And things begin to unravel, and it's cold. It's fall. But this, folks, is actually the season of realistic love. You see, oftentimes what happens is that in the first 2 years of marriage, your expectations of marriage were unrealistic. And you thought, and we thought, that marriage was going to be like that forever, right? This high octane. You know, it's amazing how many of us, young couples, when you first get married, you think you're going to, excuse me, for those who are single, but you think that you're going to have sex all day, every day, and you're going to make love. And it doesn't happen. The average family, the average couple, only gets to make love once a week. It's the average. Right? And you get sick once in that week, and you take that one out, now you're down to 3, right? And then you get a couple of kids, and you're down to 1 a month, right? And that's the average. So now you get disillusioned. Because when you were first married, and the first couple of years, these things it was more frequent. Life was relaxed. But as we go further and get into these 3 to 10 years, and things become more realistic, now it feels like fall. It feels terrible. And people they're in the season of disillusionment. But there's another passage. There's the third passage. The third passage of marriage is discovery, the discover season. This is the season of winter. It is really cold now. You know, in fall, in the previous season of disillusionment and fall, the leaves are just starting to fall. And it's telling you that change is coming, right? And it's like kind of like a little warning to you, you know, to get ready for the winter. That's what happens in fall, right? But then this season of marriage, the third passage of marriage, can be the time of discovery. Or it can be a time of winter for some. But it's really, in its normal form, if you stick it out, you'll discover that this is where comfortable love, real love, begins to develop and evolve. You see? This is where real love begins to be developed. This is the passage, the time where, you know, in 11 to 35 years, where you may have your children. If you had children early, they're adult children now at year 20 or 21. And they're adults now, and they leave home, they go to college, and now you're alone, and this can be a very fruitful time. It could be the developing of real love here. It can be. But it could also be a real winter season, a tough time. But then there are people who get to 35 years and they say, I'm safe, and it's all right, this is great. And they relax and they sit back. And you discover, you get a phone call and you hear that, did you know that so-and-so, they've been married 36 years and they're getting a divorce. You wonder what happened. Huh? Well, what happened is they were unaware of the fact that just because you enter into this season of comfortable love doesn't mean that you're going to make it to this next season, which is the season, or the final passage, is the depth. This is where you really go deep. Your roots go so deep that life, nothing but life comes out of it. You know, this is the time of where we're re-entering, and this is the time of summer. Not spring. We got those flipped around. Summer. It's a summertime. Things are looking really bright because this is the time where you have this kind of like transcendent love where you really now begin to understand what love is. It's profound. I've seen some couples like this. Mary Ellen Weibel and Howard Weibel. were a couple in Texas who were mentors for me early on in my journey. And I so admired them. They had been, when Howard passed away 3 years ago, Howard and Mary had been married 62 years. 62 years. I have not even been alive for 62 years, right? They had been married 62 years, and they still held hands. They still walk down the street with affection. They still look at each other and make jokes. Hey, you old coot, how are you doing today? Love you too. They can make fun of each other. Why? Because, boy, they had discovered transcendent love. See? So that's the final passage. Depth, spring, transcendent love. Now, here's the problem for when we think about these seasons of marriage. The problem is that in everything else in life, you prepare for a season before the season comes, right? You think about it. What do you do in summer in regards to clothing? Any of you who are shoppers, what do you do? Yes.
You gather clothes for the next summer.
That's right. You're getting clothes and clothes that are on sale, right? Right? They're not for this season. You see, the clothes that are on sale are clothes for another season, right? And depending on what kind of stores you go to, some stores, a year in advance, they're selling seasonal clothes, right? For the next 2 seasons, right? But I buy my winter jackets in summer when they have summer sales, right? Because I'm preparing for winter. If I don't have a good winter coat, I don't wait until winter comes. You know, as some people go, "Oh, it's cold outside. I don't even have a coat." It's kind of like, where have you been? You know, look, it's spring right now, all right? Guess what's coming after spring, right? Right. Summer, right? So you gotta have some summer clothes way back. You know, getting ready for the summer. Because guess what? You're not going to wake up one day and it's summer and you have on a turtleneck sweater, you know, and you wonder, oh, I'm so hot. You know, that wouldn't be very good stewardship or preparation, right? Well, that same concept applies to marriage. We should be preparing for all the seasons of marriage before the season comes. The problem is for most of us is that honestly, no one told us. And we weren't prepared for it. And particularly for those of us who came out of families that are dysfunctional and did not have any long-term marriages. And I will be the first to tell you, I was one of those. We were thinking about, Myrna and I were sitting down and thinking about, who do we know in our age range, in that wide age range, that had been married a long time? Well, who do we know that was married, period? You know, let's forget a long time. Who do we know that was married? Let's start with there, bare minimum. You're married, okay, in our circle, in our families. And then let's look and see how did we know about the other seasons of marriage and how many of them have made it to those seasons. And I have to confess that in my family, most people are divorced or they're not married. You go, you know, this is my husband. And I go, oh, it's wonderful. I haven't met you before. He said, oh, we just got married. Oh, well, we're not actually married, but it's like my husband, right? That's the norm in my extended family, right? With a few exceptions. So I didn't know how to prepare for the seasons of marriage. No one told me. So, right? And no one said to me, sat me down and said, you know what, son, listen, don't get comfortable just because you've been married 20 years, because it could be over in a day, you know. You don't coast. You don't get to coast. You get to prepare for the next season. Right? So if I had known some of these things that I'm about to share with you, then I would have had a better chance to prepare for them and so navigate them. Right? Because there's no way, just because you don't have winter clothes, that you can say, winter, I rebuke you. Don't come. In the name of Jesus, you cannot come. Guess what? Winter's going to come. And guess what? You're going to be outside freezing because you have on a T-shirt and shorts, right? Because you weren't prepared for winter. Because winter is going to come, regardless if you like it or if you want it or not. It comes. But it can be very enjoyable when it comes if you have the right clothing. I remember my mother came from Barbados, and somehow or the other, you know, it doesn't resonate with people when we tell them that, you know, spring is a cold. It will be cold for you, right? We could have some days that could feel really cold in spring, all right? But my mother came, and she didn't have a coat. And she got off the plane, and it was about 30-something degrees, 30, 40 degrees, right, that day. She got off the plane, and she was freezing. And she said, this is a miserable place, this cold place. How can it be cold in spring? And Mom was complaining, right, because she's accustomed to what? 80 degrees in Barbados, you know, year-round, all right? A cool day is 75, all right? That's cool, kind of cool, you know? Well, it's cool. I said, Mom, it's 75. I'm sweating. Right? But that's a cool day. Right? And she got off that plane, and she was shivering. And she said, at the end of that week, she said, I will never come back to this country in the cold. I'm only coming in summer. And she did. She never came back to the country again, except in summer. Right? But that was purely based on her unpreparedness for the weather. If my mother had had a nice spring coat, it could have been a very, very enjoyable experience. Why? Flowers are beginning to bloom. There's a little chill in the air, but the air is fresh and crisp, you know, and the sun is out, you know, it's beautiful days. But she couldn't really appreciate that because she was inadequately prepared. It's the same concept when we think about the seasons of marriage. Because we're inadequately prepared for those seasons, we are unable to enjoy the season because we only see the difficulties, we don't see the opportunities. So let's talk about a little bit today about, for the rest of this session, of how we can navigate these seasons of marriage and how we can grow together through them. How we can grow together through them. I want to talk about the first thing that we have to do. First thing that we have to do. And we do this, dear friends, by the grace of God. The first thing we have to do is to let go of our past marital disappointments. Let go. Let go. Because all of us are going to have disappointments, particularly for people who have been in the second half of marriage, meaning that you've gotten past the 10-year mark, right? Because you've gone past the first 2 seasons. Because, you know, when you're in the spring, you have this anticipation, the excitement of the summer's coming, and you're giddy. Woo! I'm going to be able to put on my shorts. And then summer comes, and summer only lasts for a week. And it rains the rest of the time, and then it's cold, and you have unseasonal spring weather in the summer. And you're going, what is this? and you're disappointed. And you're so disappointed that you're frustrated, and you won't acknowledge the fact that you're disappointed. It wasn't quite what I expected. That's one of the first things we have to do in marriage, to navigate the seasons of marriage, to acknowledge our disappointments. Acknowledge our disappointments. The things that I thought we were going to do, but we getting it. I thought I was going to dunk. I was going to play basketball, and I was going to dunk over Michael Jordan in my dreams. It never happened. I'm disappointed, but it's not the end. There are other opportunities to do other wonderful things. And as I think about it, you might think that you were going to have children. You might think that you are going to have a successful career. You might think you are going to be in one profession and you end up being in a different profession. You see? You may have think that your spouse had sold you a good sales job. They said, I love exercise. When you're dating and you first get married, you say, I love exercise. I love to work out. But they were just working out to get you. And then it worked out to keep you for a little while, right? And then after you settle in and you begin to let go of yourself, then the real you comes out and you say, actually, I hate exercise. And I don't plan to ever exercise ever again, right? And you begin to put on a few pounds here and a few pounds there, and the person, your partner, is upset. And there has to be a season of forgiving. You say, you weren't quite what you presented yourself as being. That's disappointment. That's necessary for us to forgive and release and let go and express. We can express our disappointment, but we don't have to let the disappointment be the last word. But it is the first word. It clears the way for us to go on, right? So we commit now, in spite of the fact that we have been disappointed, we commit in the Lord to move forward and to chart a different course than the one that we had anticipated charting. See? One of the reasons that I mention this is because sometimes people don't want to be honest and say, you know what, financially, I thought we were going to be doing better. I thought we were going to have had a house by now. We don't have a house yet. We're still living in an apartment. I thought I was going to, we've been married 20 years, and I thought we were going to be traveling every year on a nice vacation. And we haven't gotten to travel anywhere. You say, okay, we don't get to travel overseas every year, but what we can do is we can commit to each other to make a new path and make the rest of our marriage good, but good in a different way than we had thought it was going to be good. See? This is a commitment to charting a new course. The next way that we navigate this second half of marriage, and particularly these later seasons of marriage, is we create a marriage that is partner-focused rather than child-focused. Be careful of this. Nobody ever told me that in the first years of your marriage, when you don't have any children, you're like giddy. You're like, yay, woo, we love each other, and we eye each other, and then you've been married a couple of years, and the kid comes along. And now, particularly ladies, you shift your focus from being giving your attention to your husband. You give your attention now and pour yourself into the children. And so what happens is is while you're pouring yourself into the children, you're loving the children, nurturing the children, loving the children, nurturing the children. Oh, my kids are growing. And you never prepared for the fact that one of these days your children are going to grow up and they're going to leave. And when they leave, now you are left with the person that you did not pour much into having a relationship with them. That person is called your spouse. It can happen on both sides, male and female. And so now what happens is that you have been pouring into the children. Your entire life was consumed with raising your children and nurturing them and providing for them and living vicariously through them. You're giving them the best of everything, best of your time, best vacations, best clothes, best of your time, best of your emotions, and you give nothing to your partner, to your spouse. Your spouse was kind of like an addendum, and then one day the kids leave. The kids leave. And all of the unresolved problems that you had that were covered up by you focusing exclusively on the children, now every one of those problems will come out. This is like, I remember some time back when some people were coming to visit at my house. I was single then, and I didn't know they were coming by. And they said, Pastor Mike, I'm in the area, man. We're coming by. And I said, oh, man, okay, yeah, come on by. And I put the phone down, and you know how you get all your laundry that you were just sorting to throw. You know how you do? You open the door, and you go like, you start throwing them in. You put all the laundry in the door, and you put the door, and you kick it there closed, and you forget about it. And people come over to visit, and everybody says, oh, this is so nice. Your house is so neat. you know, and everything looks good. It's just like your marriage, by the way. Everything looks good. This is great. But then I wake up and I say, you know, I had some, I can't find any underwear. I don't have any more underwear, any clean underwear. And you just remember something. You open the closet door and you say, oh, those have been in there for a month. Because you forgot you had stuffed everything in there. You open the door and out falls everything, you know, your dirty laundry. Now it's smelling because it's been in there a month. Now, my clothes weren't in there for a month. Okay, they were only in there for a couple hours while they came and visited. I remember they were in there. But it's just how we do marriage, right? Everything looks really good because our entire energies are poured into raising our children. And very little energy is poured into raising up our spouses and encouraging our spouses and preparing for the reality that eventually the children will leave. As a matter of fact, they've already left, but you haven't noticed. When they hit, I remember when my daughter hit 14, and I know I look like 14, but when my daughter hit 14, she said to me, I was going to drop her off to school. She said, I said, hey, honey, it's raining. I'm going to give you a ride to school. She said, no. I said, why? It's raining. She said, no. That's embarrassing. I said, what are you talking about? I don't want to be seeing my dad dropping me off to school. And I said, wow. See, my daughter had already left. The point I'm making to you, right? She was already differentiating between dad and herself. That was just the first step into her eventually leaving to lead her own life, even though they come back, you see. So you're creating a marriage that is partner-focused rather than child-focused. So your commitment should be to, first and foremost, to nurture your marriage. And in the context of a nurturing, healthy marriage, you raise children who are eventually going to leave. That's why you kick them out gradually, you see? And then you say, don't come back unless it's a crisis. But if there's a crisis, you're always welcome back, right? But I was raising you in the context of committing to a partner-focused marriage rather than a child-focused marriage, see? Because eventually they will leave. And by the way, sometimes some of us in marriage, we can raise our children they're so important to us that we actually go through a trauma when they leave because we invested everything in them. And unknowingly, sometimes we don't allow them to leave. I know of a cousin of mine who he used to call. He was married at that time, and he used to call his mother and tell her, you know, Mom, you know, he called her to complain, you know, and she initiated this, right? Because she said, you know, is she taking care of you? And he said, no, she's not, Mom. She can't cook like you, and she doesn't even iron like you. As a matter of fact, she doesn't even iron. I don't know where anything is in the house, because his mother used to iron her husband's underwear. She'd iron his boxers. I know, don't laugh. It's serious business. She used to iron his boxers, iron his shirts, iron his pants, and lay them out on the bed every morning. She'd get up at 6 o'clock to do that, right? And so he grew up in that concept thinking that his wife was going to do the same thing. And so when she did the housework, and she had a full-time job, right? She cooked and did all those things. And he came home, he was so disappointed. He called up his mother and says, every day, you know, at least every other day, he'd call up his mother to tell her, you know, this meal, it sucks. I don't know what kind of, I don't know. You know, she can't cook, she doesn't clean, she doesn't wash, and his mother is encouraging that. How do I know that? Because his mother sat there and she said, I know, honey, I didn't raise you like that. You know, I never did like her. You know, so that's how you encourage it. What that is a reflection of is the fact that we are not ready to let go. Because we weren't raising children to leave. We put all of our life and energy into raising our children. So our relationship is actually child-focused more than it is partner-focused. Another way that we prepare to navigate and that helps us to navigate these seasons of marriage is that we have to maintain an effective communication system that allows us to express our deepest feelings and our joys and our concerns. I'm so thankful for the fact that Myrna and I were forced to learn some new skills of communication. And I thank Ray and Lauren Moy, our friends who helped us with doing the pairs group and doing some of those things, because communication it's the glue. It's the glue. It's the glue. It will take you through every one of these seasons, because every season is going to require something different of you. And if you don't have an effective communication process in there in place that you can build on, you have to tweak it continually, but it has to be in place, because you have to be able to express to your partner what you're feeling. You have to express to them your joys and your fears and your anxieties and your struggles, and to know that you have the capacity and the language that you've learned over time to be able to express what's going on. Because I'm going to tell you, when you hit your 50s, and you're young like me, and your knees begin to get a little stiff. You know, people say, Pastor, you look so fit. I don't know what you're complaining about. I said, well, what I'm complaining about is that I can't run as fast as I was able to run 5 years ago, right? So I'm realizing that, you know, there are moments where I have to say to Myrna, you know, I'm fearful, because I don't really look forward to the times where I'll be limited in my mobility. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that my entire life savings was wiped out in my when my first marriage ended and my first wife abandoned the relationship. My entire life savings, my entire pension, everything that I had was wiped out. So I'm starting over again. At 55, I'm supposed to have a pension. I have nothing. You have to be able to help each other to sit and have that kind of communication, to say, I am worried. I'm worried. Because I don't have bandwidth to experiment. I can't experiment. Everything that I do from here on has to count, my love. To be able to be heard and to have that communication. To be able to say, we are losing health. Mobility is diminishing, you know. Some ladies I've been talking to recently have said one of the greatest pains to go through is to be trying to have a child and discovering that you're not able to have children. Right? It's a pain that we need to be able to openly express and freely communicate. And we have to develop an effective communication system. It will help you through every one of the seasons of marriage. We have to have the ability to use anger. Anger and conflict in a creative way to build our relationship. Now, what do we mean by that? What does it mean by that? What does that mean? You know, people say, in the first couple of years of your marriage, people often do this. They go, we never argue. We don't argue. We don't fight. That's so negative. Why get angry about anything? And so what you do is you internalize your anger. You know you're angry. You know you're disappointed about something, but you internalize it, and over time it builds and it festers, and it'll come out eventually, but it will come out in a very explosive manner in a later season of your marriage, because you never learn how to use anger and conflict in a creative way to build your relationship. Anger is a signal that something is wrong. It's like my wife fell down a few days ago and didn't fall, but she made a misstep and ended up twisting her ankle, and it blew up. It was so swollen that she couldn't walk. Right? That swelling was a signal that there was something wrong inside her ankle. And that's what anger is. Anger is a signal that there's something wrong that we need to fix. So rather than pretending that you're not angry, rather than pretending there's not something that's creating a conflict, see it as an opportunity for you to address something that is not good. That's the reason why whenever you have a conflict and you resolve the conflict, why it bonds you closer together afterwards. The problem is for us is because we didn't have an effective communication system in place, we didn't know how to express our anger. How? Dr. John Gottman wrote a book called Why Marriages Succeed or Fail. Right? And he said that there's 4 reasons for a marriage terminating. I hope I can remember these. He said with a 90% accuracy rate, it was able to predict what marriages, out of these 2,000 marriages that they had been studying, would end based on the research. Whether or not those marriages would succeed or fail. He said with a 90% accuracy rate. And here's the 4 things they said it destroyed that all of the marriages that ended, they had in common. First of all, there was criticism, right? Criticism. Criticism is when you say you, right? When you point the finger, you say you didn't do that right. You. It's always you, right? That's criticism, right? Then there's defensiveness. When you're criticized, what do? You say thank you? You don't say thank you for criticizing me. You get defensive, right? You say, well, at least, I hit the cat, but at least I didn't hit the old lady like you did, right? Right. So now you're defensive, right? And then the third thing that he said, and this was the highest priority, he said contempt. Contempt. When you treated your partner with contempt, that's name calling. You slob, you're fat, you're stupid. That's name calling. That's contempt. You no longer have any respect for that person. So you define them now by the name that you call them, which tells them that they are of no value to you. Contempt. Then the last thing he said, quality that will cause relationships to end, was the quality of stonewalling. Stonewalling. You know what stonewalling is? When you don't even acknowledge that you were hurt, offended, or you don't even give any merit to when a person expresses a concern. You stonewall. You go, oh, really? Okay. Oh, you broke your ankle. And they stonewall. They don't show any emotion. They withdraw emotionally from all communication with you. That's stonewall. Those 4 things he said were what every marriage that ended had in common. Those 4 things. So that happens when you don't use anger and conflict in a creative way, because you can say, I am angry because you have been ignoring me. I am angry. Now you have an opportunity, because that was not a criticism, because you didn't say you are an idiot, or you are angry, or you are abusive. That's a criticism. You weren't criticizing, and you weren't defensive, right? And you weren't being contemptuous, calling them a name. You were just saying, I am angry because you ignored me. And that gives you an opportunity now to say, oh, I wasn't aware that you were angry. Thank you for telling me that you were angry. How can I help to resolve your anger? See? So, use anger and conflict in a creative way to build your relationship. So when you express your anger now the person can enter into being solution focused. And when you resolve something together, what happens? What happens? It bonds you together. You go, wow, this is good. I mean, I don't want you to be coming to me every day saying, I am angry. I am angry. But when you are angry, you need to be able to be free to express it and to use it in a creative way to signal to me that something is wrong. So now I can contribute in being able to address it. Now, there's a couple more things that we need to address. Build a deeper friendship and enjoy your spouse. See, I want to tell you that your sexual life will diminish over time, and it's okay. All right? It will diminish. It doesn't have to go away totally, but what happens is it diminishes over time, over aging. But because it wasn't the primary thing that bonded you together, what it opens up opportunities for you to do is to enjoy a deeper friendship and to actually enjoy your spouse. And if sexual encounters come out of it and sexual intimacy comes out of it, that's wonderful. If it doesn't, you have something that is even more profound. I know of so many couples who say that at the third and quarter of their marriages, when health is dissipating, health is inhibiting you from doing things, they have enjoyed each other in those moments of intimacy. They sit, their quietness together, they're holding hands, they're reading together, they go on a vacation together, they're serving together. There's a wonderful friendship. They're just enjoying each other. They have nothing to prove. Nothing to prove whatsoever. Just to enjoy each other. They develop new hobbies together, you see. They learn to do new things. They learn to find creative ways to serve together. I know a couple who, in their 70s, they learned to speak Spanish. See? You know, now it's, you know, I know you're going to ask me if I'm going to learn to speak Chinese, but it's all Greek to me. All right? I've tried Spanish, I've tried French, I've done Greek, I've done Hebrew, mastered none. So I'll keep trying. You know, somebody wants to teach me some Mandarin or Cantonese, I'm all for it. I'll give it a try. The next thing that we do, and we'll finalize here, end here, is renew romance and restore a pleasurable sexual relationship. Romance and sex are not necessarily the same thing. I know of a couple who told me that they experienced one of the most romantic and intimate times of their lives when the wife was sick. She was struggling with cancer, really went through a terrible bout of it. And he said, we had some of the most wonderful times when I was sitting by her bedside and we weren't sure if she was going to make it. And we just had these tender moments of romance. We looked into each other's eyes and realized that, you know what, I love you, I enjoy you. I don't want to see you go, but if you go, I know that we enjoyed each other. He said that was some of the most intimate times they'd ever had when she was sick. And I said, well, how could that be? He said, well, because we learned to appreciate each other. We learned to really be comfortable with who we were at our most vulnerable moment. And she said, he said that bonded him and his wife together in a way that they could never have imagined. See? So renewing romance. Learn to do some things. Set up a date. You know, couples with children especially, they struggle to do this. You know, having dates and going out without children. That's why you've got to build into your partner, even while your children are there. This is the hard one for me. This is the hard one. We have to adjust to our changing roles with aging parents and our adult children. It's tough. Right? But the way we do that is that we understand that they're not the same as they were yesterday, and they're not going to be the same tomorrow. They're going to be different. And just be open to the fact that their changes are going to mean you have to change. And so there has to be an openness. I don't have an answer for this. Actually, it's probably the most difficult part of dealing with these seasons of marriage, because we don't know when our parents will be sick or ill. Sometimes you have an able-bodied parent who, they look really strong and vigorous, and they're just 70, and you're 70-something, and you're in your 50s, and you think, they've got many more years, and then they have a stroke. And a person who used to be able to be strong and independent and didn't need to be taken care of, all of a sudden now they're debilitated. And I know that because my mother was that way. I didn't know my mother had a stroke. She was a lawyer. And my mother didn't need help from anybody. She's the most independent, fiercely independent woman that I ever met. But once she had that stroke, it changed my life and changed my relationship with her. And so I had to change. I had to make some adjustments. I remember the first time that I had to deal with the reality that I have no one else to help me with my mother when she was staying with me. So I had to figure out how I'm going to get her to rehab, how I'm going to get her treatment, how I'm going to clean her. I ended up having to move. I moved my mother into my apartment with the kids, and I ended up having to bathe her. That was new for me. That was new for my mother, And I said, well, Mom, which would you prefer? Would you prefer that I bathe you and clean you, or you don't get clean at all? Because I don't have anyone else. So I had to change. I had to adjust. Took on a different role. Now I'm her care provider rather than she being my provider. Now I'm more the adult and she's the child in some ways. So it had to be a willingness to adjust. And one of the ways that we adjust, by the way, with this, is that we have to, every marriage is different. Every relationship with parents is different. But you just got to know that there's got to be a season where you have to say, I need help. I can't do it all. Because you go from caring for your children to caring for your parents, to caring for your spouse's parents, to caring for grandparents and other grandparents and aunts and uncles. And before you know it, you're spread so thin that you have totally overlooked your marriage. See? So there has to come a point where you may have to say, part of the adjustments that I make is I can't do it all and I need help. So we adjust to changing roles with aging parents. And last of all, we evaluate where we are on our spiritual pilgrimage. And we choose to grow closer to each other and to God and together serve others. Because that's part of how we navigate these later seasons of marriage. Because they're wonderful opportunities for us to serve together, wonderful opportunities for us to learn how to nurture each other in our faith in ways that we maybe didn't have the time and the opportunities to do before. And so one of the things about navigating these seasons, particularly when we are dealing with illness and increasing responsibilities and voids in our life, is that we learn how to develop a devotional life together. Learn how to pray not only for each other, but with each other. And study God's Word together. And there comes wonderful and powerful things out of that, that at earlier stages in your marriage, you didn't take time to do them. But these later stages of your marriage can be a wonderful opportunity to do that. Because now you're fully vulnerable. You have nothing to hide, no pretenses. You are who you are. You're older. And you know what? We're old together. And so we can really, truly, at this moment, enjoy each other. So that's our growing together through the seasons of marriage. Palm, do we have any questions? I saw. We've got all the questions. You might need to give a microphone there because I don't know if we will be able to hear you. Oh, come on up. Okay.
All right. I'll start with this one. Describe the role of a helpmate. What can a wife do to fulfill this responsibility?
Okay. First of all, when we talk about the word help me, I actually don't like that translation sometimes, right? Because it sounds like, particularly for the woman, it sounds like her only role in this life is to help make the man, right? Right. And that's not the case. That word, help me, that word is also used of God in other passages. That same word is used to describe God. So it's not you. It says that God is Israel's helpmeet, right? Helper. And it's not talking about an inferior, because God's not an inferior, right? As a matter of fact, it's a superior, because God is superior to us, right? But God comes alongside of us to make sure that his kingdom, that his mandate, his purpose and plans for us are fulfilled. See? So to be a helper means that you're really one who is standing alongside to assist and to support and to ensure that God's purposes and plans are fulfilled in your partner. That's a helpmeet. Not a doormat.
Okay. Next question. Is it on? All right. In the New Testament scripture, it says, "Husbands, love your wives." What does that mean?
Whatever she says. Well, I'll tell you what that really means. That means, husband, love your wives. You need to discover what your wife's love language is, right? You need to discover what your love language is. So that brings me on to this very quickly. I'm just going to put it up for you, all right? You need to discover what's your spouse's love language. Can you put all these forward? For some reason. Okay. These are the 5 love languages. Words of affirmation, right? If you say that you love me, and my love language is I need words of affirmation, but you never give me words of affirmation, you buy me gifts. And then you say, well, you know I love you because I always give you gifts. Well, that's your love language, not mine. My love language is words of affirmation. Or your love language might be acts of service, how you serve, how you're served, you know. If you tell your spouse that you love them by the way you take out the trash, and you offer to wash the dishes even though you don't like to. The fact that you offer and that you do it, you take out the trash, that you clean the house even though you don't like cleaning, and that you get down on your knees and clean the toilet bowl, even though it's not one of your favorite tasks to do. But because you've served in that way, they feel loved. Gift giving. I know so many men who never give their wife a gift. Quality time. You know, not being, some people need quality time. Undivided attention, not, yeah, hon, yeah. Are you listening to me? Yeah. Let me do this email real quick. And that's not quality time, right? See, so you tell them you love them by giving them quality time. Physical touch. Some people, that's their love language. And if your wife needs physical touch, it will help if you would let her know that she is loved. Husband, love your wife. Just touch her now and then. Hi, hon. And I'm not talking about popping her around the head. That's not the touch I'm talking about. I'm talking about, stroking her hair and, rubbing your hand along her cheek. And you're telling her, I love you. So husbands, love your wife. Do whatever it takes. Whatever her love language is, express your love for her in that way and be willing to sacrifice. But you can only do that if you're abiding in Christ. See? Because you're learning, Christ is teaching you as you're living your life in Christ. He's teaching you how to love beyond just the human love that we have. That's the love in Ephesians 5 is agape love, unconditional love. That expects nothing in return. See? So.
Okay, next question. In the handout slide on the seasons of love, on the third season, it had written complacent love, but on the screen it said comfortable love.
Oh, okay. I had put an extra. Thank you for noticing that, someone. So, in that third season of marriage, what can happen is that because you've been married for 30 years, you can become complacent. And you could say, I've arrived. And people tell me it all the time. They say, I've been married for 30 years. It's but then they go on to tell me, I said, well, when's the last time you guys went out on a date? Oh, that's for young people. That's complacency. We always need to stir and stoke and encourage and build up our marriage and our marriage partner.
All right. Staying on that third season, can you name one practical step or thing to do to reinforce the marriage during those years?
Well, it really takes us saying that, first of all, we have to acknowledge we have a problem. Right? And the problem is we became complacent. Maybe we left some things untended to. We had some garbage in the closet that we knew it was in there, but we put it in there and we closed the door and we ignored it. Now it's really stinking and it's rotten. And so we have to acknowledge that there is a smell coming from the closet, and we have to be willing to say that, this is a problem. And so let's together address it. And whatever we have to do, even if we have to get outside help, we're going to address it. We're not going to pretend it's not a problem.
Okay, going along the lines of outside help, when do you think marriage counseling is needed, and could you cite some examples?
Whew. For every, I'll say this, and I'll tell you truth of the matter. There is no clear way to say this is when you need to go to counseling, because for every relationship is different. Personally, Myrna and I made a commitment that if we were going down a road that neither one of us has the answer. We don't know how to resolve it, and we're not getting anywhere with an issue. We just can't come to an agreement on an issue. We've agreed that we will go to counseling at that point and not let it fester and go to counseling down the road, years later it's at a point now where it's blown out. It's blown out of proportion. So I have no problem with going to counseling just for the sake of, even as a pastor right now, I have no problem in going to counseling to sit down with a therapist, Christian counselor, and just unload. And just say, I want to be defensive, but I can't be. I want to express the fact that I'm wounded, I'm hurt, I feel criticized, I feel unappreciated. I think there's seasons of life where all of us need to have someone who is impartial hear us. And at that point, I think you just got to be willing to acknowledge where you are, being self-aware. The problem, though, is, Suzanne, is that most of us do not have very good emotional intelligence or spiritual intelligence. And what I mean by that is this. we are not aware of how we are processing things and how we are responding to things and the impact that our responses have on people around us. And if we don't have that, we won't have the emotional intelligence or wisdom to know that we need to get help. So we have to have a growing awareness of how things are impacting us and how our responses are affecting the people around us. Prime example would be somebody said to you, you know, you're always angry. You say, I'm not angry. That's because you have very low emotional intelligence. You're not aware of how your psyche, your personhood, and your responses have affected people around you. So go before there's a problem. I have people who have come to me for premarital counseling over the years, and I've always said in the last 15 years, I will not marry any couple who is not willing to go through at least 6 premarital counseling sessions. That's my rule. I hold to that. And there's a reason why I do that. It's because what I want to give couples an opportunity to see is to see themselves as they really are, not as they think they are, right? And to develop some of the tools that is going to be helpful for them. I can't guarantee their marriage is going to be great or work, but I can guarantee that you'll develop some tools to help you navigate some of these matters that come up in marriage. But almost always, I would say, 2 out of 3 people turn me down. And they say, okay, I'll get back to you. And they don't. They go down the street to Reverend Joe Blow, who will perform a wedding for $200 and will do the ceremony at their church, and they go ahead and they get married. And because they said, we don't have any problems. We don't need counseling. We have a great relationship. I said, well, you missed the point. The premarital counseling wasn't for you because you have problems. It was to help you prepare for when problems come so that you have some tools. That's all it is, tools. So I'd approach counseling the same way, generally. Have any more questions, Suzanne? Anyone have any questions? Yes, Dave.
If somebody comes to you for a wedding and you say, all right, I need 6 sessions with you.
Sure.
They agree.
Mm-hmm.
But after the 6 sessions, you don't think it's proper for them to get married.
Mm-hmm.
You may say, I don't think so. Do you still what? They did the 6 sessions. I still don't marry them. Or
No. At the end of the 6 sessions, I will make a recommendation. I say, you know, I would recommend to you. I never tell people don't get married, because you know what? They don't listen to you. Because they've already decided they're going to marry, right?
you'll marry them.
But I won't marry them. I would make a recommendation, and my recommendation is, if I recommend that you delay your marriage. I don't tell people don't marry, because they'll never listen to you. But what I do say is, I would delay your marriage ceremony for a little while until you've had a chance to go through some long-term counseling. And I've told several couples that. I told one couple that you know, the wife had experienced being raped, and the trauma was still affecting her. And I said, I recommend that you guys not get married. I recommend that you not get married, because you never addressed that, and that trauma is carrying forward. So things like that, I would say, I recommend you not get married right now. That's all. But I'll support you, and I'll refer you to a good Christian counselor, and And let's journey together and see what God, the wonderful healing that God could bring in this. But they won't listen to you. They go get married. Yeah. All right, one last question. All right. Well, praise God. I thank you all today for being here. It's wonderful to share this time with you. I know this was a lot for us to absorb, but all I would do is express to you to process, think through, and before you leave, I just wanted to bring to your attention this inside sheet. There's a little bit about our church. Just want to let you know some of the things that are going on here at Chinese Evangel Mission Church of Queens. These are some of our ministries, some of our upcoming events. All church-wide prayer meeting is coming up on May 18th, open to all. We have Vacation Bible School is coming up on September 21st. We're going to be having a free estate planning seminar here as an outreach, and then a winter retreat, December the 27th through 29th. I don't know the speaker for that. I think his name is Pastor Michael Herbert, so you got to speak to him. But yeah, I will be speaking at that. I have been told. So this is a little bit of information, and also, what else do we have?
One last thing. This is the first of many, so we need your feedback.
Yes.
So please be as specific as possible, so that will help us plan for future workshops and something that will meet your needs the best way. So be specific, and then not to leave until you fill this out. This is an exiting ticket. All welcome to come back and worship with us if you don't have a church family.
Right. And also, we didn't put on here, or yes, we did. We also have a new ministry, our special needs ministry, and I know some of you I know who have families who know families who have special needs children. And, oh yes, it is, okay. And I want to make you aware of that because that's something that we've just started, and God's been very gracious to us to grow that. And then finally, I want to leave you with this right here is a sheet of all some resources that you can read and follow up with. These are some books that I have found helpful over the years. And I would encourage you, if you see any thing in an area that you need some help, I recommend every one of these books. They're all books that I've used and I still use it and still read it. All right. I want to close this out with a word of prayer, and then I want to invite you to stick around and mix and mingle. We're glad to have you and hope this was a productive time for you. Lord, we bless you. This has been a lot for us to absorb and to think through. But we thank you for your gracious kindness that you have at least given us a context and a forum in which we could hear this, process it, and be in a safe space that we open our hearts to you helping us to see where we are in the process and where we struggle and our challenges as we navigate each of the seasons of marriage, no matter where we are in our passage and in our season. So help every couple that's here, Lord, to build a deepening and ever more intimate, ever more loving relationship, marriage, and partnership. To your glory and to your honor. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a wonderful evening. Please feel free to mix and mingle. And I'm glad to see everyone who came. And please fill out these feedback forms and help us think about how we can make it even better the next time.